Welcome, everyone, to the TV show Together We Serve. It's a day after Halloween. I hope you guys are done with your chocolate and candy hangover. Probably not. It's not like Thanksgiving. You can't make candy sandwiches. That's why I love Thanksgiving more than Halloween. Just on the side note, you can make all those turkey sandwiches and ham sandwiches. But we got a great show today because I'm very excited. We're going to talk leadership. It's going to come from a perspective of my guest experience with law enforcement. And, you know, it's so important leadership, but especially in law enforcement, military, EMS, all those services, because guess what? You make a mistake in leadership there, death could happen. One of the worst things that could happen. So I'm excited to have my guest. I'm going to bring him on right now. There he is. Hey, Rick, welcome to the show.
Hey, Steve. Good to see you.
You too. Leadership's, it's talked about so much these days. Talk about your background in law enforcement, why you've transitioned into actually helping people with leadership.
Yeah, so I started my career, 1994, so it's been a long time. I got into law enforcement because my dad was a cop for 33 years. He retired as a chief of police. I grew up I went through a couple of different police departments. First one was outside of Atlanta in Georgia, Smyrna, Georgia, then Tempe, Arizona. And then I finished my career at Fairfax County, Virginia, here in the DC metro area. I've always had a passion for learning and development. I've been an instructor for a long time, but I was a police instructor for a long time. And one of the things I discovered through my career is a lack of development opportunities, not just at the line level, but at the leadership and the management level. You get promoted and you maybe get a week of training. All leadership training you're usually doing on your own. It's until you get to the higher ranks. And it was something that was lacking. I think maybe I had 3 or 4 bosses through my entire career that I could call a true leader. And leadership is an action. It's not a position. It's an action. And there was a lack of action on any number of people that I used to work for. And it's tough, especially like you mentioned in the open. It's leading to the point of death. I mean, you literally are in situations every day, dealing with trauma every single day, and have to support your people. And I had a mental health, I don't want to say crisis, but I dealt with some things during my career, and I actually had a first line leader, humanize me and see me for the troubles I was having. And it led me to get the help that I needed to get me to where I am today, and allowed me the opportunity to be able to give back. That's really, I got my PhD in organizational leadership, specializing in public safety, simply because of what I found when I was a cop. The lack of leadership development and the lack of the ability for people to support us in that role. And it's so critical. And I'm thankful I get the opportunity to do that now. That's kind of where I'm at at this point in my life.
Yeah, and it's interesting, and burnout and all that happens too because of the stresses and what you see every day. It's probably mental health throughout law enforcement, EMS. I mean, if it's not 100%, it's probably pretty close, which is even more so leadership. What have you learned, being a cop and now being a leadership coach or advisor for businesses? Because they're a little bit different, but leadership's the same.
Yeah, it's a lot different. I don't know what I don't know, and most people say the same thing, right? You get promoted into a position, and you may have some background from the military that you came into policing with, or fire or EMS or any of the public safety entities. I work a lot on the consulting side with nightclubs and bars and security teams, and it's the same thing. You get people that have very little experience, very little exposure to the kind of things they're going to face on a day-to-day basis, and don't really have any kind of support built into those places. Policing is getting a lot better with the wellness component and the mental health component, but it's still not adequate. There's still a lot of challenges, and the military has been facing this for decades. I mean, it's been so long, and even they still have trouble dealing with it, and they've been developing leaders. They have the creme de la creme in leadership development programs, but even those, I've been told, are not as good as they used to be, but they are getting better. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah, time's always a good ally. And I told you before that we started the show, having lunch and seeing the report of a young man, 17 years old, shoot and killed a couple people and hurt many. But what's interesting to me, and it's interesting that we're doing the show, and I'm thinking about you going, okay, there's the chief of police, and this media is asking questions like, well, how come you didn't know? Why didn't you see it? Things happen, and he's put in a position of leadership with no answers. How do you handle that?
Tell the truth. It all comes back to, we control what we control. We can do all the planning. Like Mike Tyson used to say, or he still does say, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. And at policing, things change just like that. And people can Monday morning quarterback you all day long after the fact. All the preparation and strategic development, and you're looking at from operations to tactical deployments. You can have all the best planning in the world, but when somebody punches you in the face, it's go time, and you have to do the best you can with the resources that you have at your disposal. And uh, the leadership component of that is on the ground, dealing with the incident as it happens, and trying to support and get the people help, and keep everybody safe and secure, and neutralize the threat at the same time. And the chief is responsible for helping the organization prepare for those things, but really is the public facing element of the organization, whereas most likely deputy chiefs and below are handling the operational component of strategy, and the deployment of resources on the ground for those. So facing that kind of scrutiny is difficult, but if they have the plans in place, and the ability to recognize that where the gaps and the things, and that's where after action reports come into play. That's where being able to debrief those situations and saying where are the gaps, what can we do better. You're never going to be perfect. You're never going to have a perfect response. The perfect response is things don't happen, and unfortunately, that's not the case. People nowadays, we just don't know. You just don't know who we're dealing with, and you have to expect the unexpected.
Yeah. So let's take that into business, because a lot of people listening are business owners, entrepreneurs, or in business. Same thing. Tragic events happen. COVID's a perfect example. Let's just use that. Using the same scenario, what do you see leadership, and how would you work with a founder, CEO, entrepreneur on that? Hey, half my revenue's gone. I don't know if I'm going to make it. Same thing as, it's not the same thing as shooting, but it's tragic for that business. It might die.
Right. It goes to the crisis response, right? It's planning for those kind of the ever changing economics of the world, and it's you have to be agile, especially in today's business environment. You've got to be able to have plans in place to respond. Again, you don't know what's going to take place, you don't know what's going to happen, but at the same time, if you trust your team, and you instill those people in the right place, put the right people in the right position to be able to make the proper decisions, have the data to support the decisions. You really are just a figurehead. You can just sit back as long as you're there and really leadership is about supporting and about influence. If you can support your people and give them the tools they need to be successful, and you really help develop them into the roles that they are in, and those roles are clarified, and people are communicating across different divisions, and being able to see what's ahead of them, and how each section, each division, each department, each team works in tandem, works together to be able to see those opportunities above and beyond their own position in the organization. If I sit there with my blinders on all day long and just do my job, stay in my lane, we're missing so many opportunities to collaborate, so many opportunities to see the threats. If we think about 9/11, 9/11 is a great example. The FBI and CIA, they were just head to head all the time. They weren't working together. They weren't cooperating because there was a lack of humanization between the two. Just for whatever reason, those two guys just did not like each other. And it ended up, causing, one of the worst terror events in history. And it's because they weren't seeing each other as human beings, and they weren't seeing each other and being able to collaborate beyond their own lane. Just get out of that way and get out of your own way. It's about self-awareness and self-regulation and ego. And we just, it's so hard. And if you have those components, you're never going to be able to see past that and support other teams and be able to do the things you need to do to get the job done and react to situations like COVID.
Yeah, and I heard a great acronym for EGO to take away the positive side, empowering greater outcomes. They didn't do that. And that's exactly what you teach and talk about. Is there one or two experiences in your law enforcement days that has taught you to be a better coach today?
Um, wow. Yeah, I would say, well, there's a whole lot of them.
I'm sure.
I
Yeah, there's
I
probably.
screwed up. I screwed up way more than that I did the right thing. That's for sure. Unfortunately, I think for me, I had probably the two um, great experiences I've had in terms of having good leaders. I mentioned the two or three handful of people that I actually have a true leadership beacons of leadership in an organization. One of them was a really good friend of mine, and he was always willing to jump in and help and do things and be able to make a difference. I don't know if there's a story in there, but it just his willingness to constantly ask questions and be curious and understand his impact and how he can help serve and do us and or do for us and be able to support us as we try to roll out new training or large scale training. Like when I was at the academy with Fairfax County Police Department, we shifted some of the ways we did DUI enforcement training, standardized field sobriety test. Where you take one foot in front of the other, stand on one leg. Well, those are standardized tests, and we weren't really teaching them to the way they were the expectation of the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration designed it based on the research that was done. And so we took a step back, revamped our entire program. He was there every step of the way to support us and give us the things that we needed. We were doing live alcohol screening. We would bring people in to get intoxicated so that the recruits could actually see what it looks like for somebody to be intoxicated and take those tests and be able to be able to articulate that when they're out on the road. Um, my good friend Gene and we took that program, and it was really some of the brainchild that Gene is. I was just there to understand some of the research behind it, put in place. But our lieutenant at the time, Mike, he was always that way. Everything we did, he was there to support us, and that's the kind of person we need. And I think the other one, big one for me, was saved my life. Is when I had some of the mental health struggles I mentioned earlier, I had a supervisor that pulled up car to car with me, and I know we've talked about the story before, but he pulled up car to car with me, and he's like, "Hey, Rick, are you okay? What's going on with you?" And of course, I was a mess. I was falling apart. I was getting a divorce. I was drinking. I was having all kinds of financial problems, and I blew it off. I'm like, I'm good, Sarge. No big deal. I'm fine. And then a couple of days later, I got suspended, badge and gun taken from me. I almost lost the job that I actually loved more than anything else at the time. And I almost lost my life because of it. But at that moment that I felt those things bearing down on me, I remembered that somebody actually humanized me and cared about me enough to ask me and get curious about me and what I needed at the moment. And I think seeing two people in those situations, one when we're dealing with personal struggles, which is critical, especially for law enforcement, fire, EMS, and any position in public safety, and having those people be able to be in tune with other people's humanity is so important, Steve. I can't tell you. I've seen it all across so many organizations I work with. When people start having those epiphanies and start seeing those things, and we can look at each other and work from that one thing that we all have in common, that humanity, things completely change. And it did for me. Both those examples are just reinforcement of that. If you see me as a person, the magic that can happen from that. I
Yeah.
just leadership
You're
101.
you're yeah, you're nailing it, because you mentioned before, he goes, I made many mistakes. And my first thought is, well, he's a police officer, he can't make mistakes. I'm going, well, Steve, in my head, like, yes, he can't, because guess what? He's human. You're no different than me. I'm just not a cop. You were. Of course, your mistakes are louder than mine and could be very loud, but we got it. You're right. Humanize business. Now, you work with a lot of safety services. What is some of the things that you work on that are really making an impact?
I think it comes down to some of the key things we're working on is trying to help support those first line and first level leadership teams, the sergeant level, and even mid level managers, captains, lieutenants, because those, and patrol too. Patrol is the backbone of the organization. However, we often it's interesting. We say the patrol is the backbone of an organization, of a police organization, but what happens oftentimes is it becomes a dumping ground, or I just want to get out of patrol. I want to be a detective, or I want to be in SWAT, or I want to be whatever. And patrol is should be a place where everybody should want to stay and want to go and want to be. But if you get in trouble, if you're a detective and you get in trouble, you get sent back to patrol. So you're telling me that this is the backbone of the department, but yet you're showing me that it's not. So your actions are speaking louder than words. So we're trying to change I am very vocal about changing the narrative, and I was a patrol guy my entire career, except when I went to the academy, and I loved working in patrol, because without the patrol cops, without the first line supervisors that oversee them, which are the most critical leadership role in a police organization or even a fire service, that first line is so critical because they have a direct impact on major incidents. Think of the Orlando thing. The first supervisors on the scene were probably sergeants, aside for the patrol officers. And those folks are in it. They're there every single day, and it's being able to impact that from my perspective has been so rewarding. I haven't got to the level that I want to yet. There's so much more I can do, but being able to be on the ground with those people and being able to help coach them, especially first line supervisors, but even up the chain too, because they all struggle in some form or fashion trying to figure out um, their own ways. And that self-awareness is key, because you forget about it. We get in the job, and we go about our day, and the socialization that happens in the constant state of trauma. The more you feel that trauma, it's just the response of the body and the response of the mind psychologically is to shut off any ability to build relationships. Well, if I can't build relationships with the people around me, the people that I work with, the people that I report to, and the community, trust is broken. And that's where I think we can have a real impact. And that's where I'm focused my efforts on every single day, to try to build those levels of trust and get people to see each other and understand some of those components to help them grow.
I love that, because when I first met you, what comes to my head is you have all this. There's 20 years. Is how you were 20 years a cop? Yeah,
Correct.
that's a lot of time. It's not 1 or 2 years. You saw it all, as the phrase goes. But coming in to leadership coach them and to support them because of the experience. Now, I could probably do it, but experience is such the tipping point. I love that. Somebody's thinking about getting into services like this. What would you tell them?
There's a lot of negativity out there around this. There has been since COVID, since the George Floyd incident. There's everybody has an opinion or what other, but sometimes you just have to. It's about doing the right thing for the right reason. If you're drawn to it and you feel like a sense of service is needed, and I'll be honest with you. After I retired and walked away from the job doing some other things, I said, I'll never go back to that job and I'd never do it again. But I I probably would if I had the right opportunity. I'd probably go back. My wife wouldn't like it, but I'm drawn to that sense of service, and I think that there's a lot of people like that, and I would encourage them to take that step, and especially the generations coming in today.
Mm-hmm.
They work a little bit differently, and I think that departments and services are starting to recognize that they need to change their culture, which is the biggest concern that I have across the board. Is the culture of these organizations are the same way they've always been. I went from one police department to another to another. The culture is exactly the same. It doesn't change from police department to police department. The job doesn't change. The socialization doesn't change. It's the context and the laws and those types of things that change a little bit, but it's essentially the same job. But I saw the same thing everywhere I went. I had the same types of bosses. I had one or two at the first one. I had one or two at the second, and three or four at the last one, that I could say that I would follow them into a burning building, into a shooting, into whatever, because I trusted them that they would do the right thing and they would take care of me and the people that we were working with. But I think we need people like that. And I think that with the right frame of mind, the right service mentality, and somebody that's willing to do it because they feel that sense, that draw, then do it. Because we need good people on the line. We need good people in these organizations. And you know what? Quite honestly, eventually the people that are are not living up to that potential, or they're just sitting there waiting to retire, they're going to be gone eventually. And the people that replace them, if we can develop them early and get them the tools that they need to be successful and communicate and humanize and remember why they became a cop, things are going to change. The culture is going to change. It's going to take time. But we need good people. And I would tell them that, to take that opportunity, because you have a chance to make a difference. You really do. And I believe that.
I love that. And that's why I wanted you to mention it, because I know here in Northern California, San Jose, where I'm at, we're short officers. We just are. I know I talked to officers. It's probably happening everywhere, if not most areas. And it comes back to humanization. And one thing that isn't talked about is family. And not your immediate wife and kids, family, cousins, all that. Because I was watching this police chief today, and my first or second thought really was like, what's he going to say, poor guy? And I say that not in jest, but that's his job. But still, he's got to deal with all this. I thought about his wife, if he had a wife and kids, and they're watching that, and he has to deal with this once he's off screen. He's got to go back to the office, meet with them, all that comes with. What's your leadership, advice for service people out there with their families?
I don't know if I have any advice per se, but I think leaning on family is so critical. And I've learned that more so now than I ever have before. My wife now, she's been a beacon for me, and that's my family, and her family has become my family. My dad and my mom and all of them. I never shared any of this stuff. Like the things I've been talking to you about, the things I went through when I was a cop, nobody ever knew that. I didn't tell anybody any of that. I shared that the first time last year. I think they all knew something was going on. They just, we didn't talk about it. And if you don't talk about it and you don't have the support system and you're able to go home and a part of it is the trauma you deal with, you want to shield your family from that. And that's still true to this day. But I think that by doing that, you're cutting yourself off. Again, going back to that trauma response, you have that ongoing constant trauma, even from that leadership perspective. If you continue down that path and you don't reconcile that with yourself and are self-aware enough to do something about it, therapy, group therapy, family therapy, whatever, it's got to have a safe place to talk about that stuff to be able to overcome it, because you're going to cut into those relationships and you're eventually going to, drive a wedge in those relationships. And it makes home that much harder. Leadership's a lonely place. Being at the top is a lonely job. And I know a lot of chiefs that have that feeling, a lot of deputy chiefs. I've coached them, and I sit and listen to they have the same struggles, probably more so because they have so much responsibility. They care. They give a damn about these people, but nobody sees it, and everybody points fingers and says, it's your fault. It's your fault. Why aren't you out here helping us? Some can ring true, but I think they have a good heart and they have good intentions, but they sit back and they're like, I just can't wait to get out of here. I just want to retire. But at the same time, they have a sense of service, and they know that they have something to give, and they want to leave the department in better shape than it was when they got there. And I think that's the hard part for them. But if they aren't having those conversations with their family and sharing that and being able to express that in a way, and really, I know a lot of folks are getting the opportunity to have therapy, but now that we're building these wellness programs and these peer support places for officers to go, and then it applies to leaders too, that without that mechanism, being able to talk about those things, it's going to drive a wedge in it and make things more challenging at home. I think a lot of folks are having a little bit easier time with it these days, but it's still a struggle. There's so many folks that I talk to that are struggling, and it breaks my heart.
Yeah, me too. And it's that's the egg before the chicken fray. I forget what it is, but you get what it's just hard because we need them. We need police. We need EMS. We need, not getting political, and I've talked about that before. I don't want to go that with this, but right now we need them because they're needed until a system changes, which I don't think in my lifetime it will. I like that. And you actually answered the question much better than I thought you would when you started, because you lived that. And, we see the media, the TV shows, movies and stuff, and guy coming home and not telling his wife and this, and then infidelity and all this stuff that I've heard. We just need somebody to give them a focus to go, like you said. But that's also everybody in the world. That's the crazy thing. It's just not police officers, not fire, not just EMT. It's everybody.
It is.
It's just more glorified in these safety. How do you support your clients' unique growth needs? Because you want them to grow. Of course, a coach, that's what we want to do, is we want our clients to grow, or players, or whoever we're coaching. What do you think it is?
I think it all comes back to self-awareness and being able to see that and those challenges that they have in themselves and what's around them. And I think one of the things I always stress, because, I love Stoicism. I'm a big fan. I love studying all kinds of philosophy, but for me, it's something that I listen, Steve, I'm not going to lie. I still struggle every day. I'm like anybody else. I'm human. We're all human. I struggle every single day, but I have ways to cope and be able to sit back, and whether it be, journaling, which I do quite a bit, or, just read or relax. But everybody's got to have a thing that can help them understand that you can only control what you can control in your response to other people, and understand your impact on those around you, and realize that you don't have control of what the media says. You don't have control of all that matters is your character and how you show up for your people, how you show up for your family. And if you can do that, and we all have kind of I think at some level, many of us, whether it be, the imposter syndrome showing up, or whether it be we have a need to be seen as this great boss, I'm a chief. I just need to be seen as this great person that's got everything under control, and that they don't, and it's okay. But we're going to we can give people grace if they share those things, or they're vulnerable. Sometimes you as a police leader or a fire service leader or somebody, a CEO, whomever, sometimes you got to show that strength, but sometimes vulnerability is just as powerful a tool as anything else. You don't have all the answers. None of us do. Yeah. We rely on each other to be successful. We wouldn't be here talking together if you and I wouldn't share the same passion or interest, or be able to have a conversation and be vulnerable with each other and say, hey, I certainly don't have all the answers, but when I'm coaching these folks, I'm just curious and just listen. And I tell them, that's all you got to do with your people. Just be curious, just listen, support them, give them the tools and develop them, help them get better in what they're doing so that they feel comfortable every single day. Because think about how you feel right now and how stressful this is, and the challenge you're facing. Oh my God, it's just over and over again. Well, think about what people below you or around you are going through, and shift your focus and try to be helpful. And you'll find, and this is for me too, you'll find by doing that, it's just so much more, I won't say gratifying is not really the right word, but it's much more powerful. It's more impactful. I feel like I've made a difference in being able to get them to see that, but they have to begin to see it on their own. I can't tell them and give them the advice. I can just say, be who you're supposed to be and live that character, and character is fate. And if you have that character and you really want to serve and give back and support your people and make them better, everything gets a little bit easier.
Well, authenticity is the key. And I learned, and this falls exactly what you're saying, Rick. A couple of military guys have told me stories of generals, the top dogs. And again, military is no different than the police, or life and death situations. And he says it's built in the military. Maybe that's why they're a little bit better than and maybe not. But they said generals will come down to us and go, we made a mistake. And mistakes were like, we deployed the wrong amount of guys. We put you in danger. Well, I tell everybody now, and I've learned a lot of lessons, and you same way, Rick. If a general's going to say that to his troops of hundreds of people and his lieutenants and colonels, then why can't we say, I made a mistake. I didn't call you, or I didn't send the email, or I don't want to say trivial, but a smaller event than, hey, let me send you out with 1,000. I should have sent 5,000, and a potential death could have arisen. I mean, I love that what you said, because that we have to kind of bring this back down, using your great word again, humanizing this, making it human and understood. Well, with that, that's a hell of a way to take our break, because that's a lesson for everybody, CEOs, entrepreneurs across the board. Be humble with whoever you're working with, and I think that'd be $1 million tip. So let's take a break. Take about 5 or 6 minutes. Let's Rick's gonna give us some spouting out some great information. Let's give him a break, and we'll be back in about 5-6 minutes. Well, a little blues to get your Friday afternoon. I sound like a radio announcer. That sounds like, all right, KLOK. No, I'm half kidding because they're not on KLOK. I do want to say I went through Rick's website, and it's interesting because you saw a lot of positivity there. And he's lived through a life of ups and downs, as he told us in the first segment. But if you're a coach out there, I think if you look at his website, the resounding thing that I saw was the positivity through that. Was not that drill sergeant, football coach yelling and screaming at their players or their military students. It's how can we work together to support. What's the name of the TV show? Together We Serve. He works side by side, which a true leader should, with his clients to make sure they grow and they succeed. We're going to have ups and downs, and when we have failure, we come back with a success. We fail, we come back with a success. And I think that's a big part of what he does and why I'm so excited he came on and agreed to come on to this TV show. Let's bring Rick back. Welcome back. He looks nourished and ready to roll, and we got a few minutes here. We have a little more than a few minutes left. Why do you think you're so positive, everything you've been through?
I attribute it to my support system now. I mean, not only that, but I think I've realized that life is short. We could, again, going back to my stoicism is, we could not be here tomorrow. So why worry about the things that you can't control? Why worry about, um, you know, what happened today or what's going to happen, tomorrow? I can't control that stuff. All I can control is what I do and how I live my life, and I live my life now more than ever than I had before intentionally. I curated like the website, which I can't take credit for that. I had a great person, Tracy, do it, but I had it curated, and I curated my career. I curated how I've approached my own development to be able to support other people, and because I never I had to do that myself. I had to do my own development. I had some support along the way, but again, it comes back to where I am now. How I stay positive is my family support, my wife especially. She's my rock, and I'm so fortunate for that, and I'm so grateful for that too, and her family, and the people that I work with. I have amazing colleagues. Some of the I've when I even in law enforcement, one of the things I miss most about law enforcement is the camaraderie and the support and the jesting and the joking. But now with the people that I work with, we're all passionate and we're all driven by a purpose. And I'm at the point in my life where I'm driven by purpose. And the only way to do that is to be authentic and be myself. Understand that I have limitations and I have things that I can get better on. But if I don't show up for my clients or the people that I'm supporting in a way that helps them improve or helps them, get the answers to the questions they need, what impact am I going to have? It's probably not going to be good. So why blame? Why complain? Why life is short. You got to live it and love it.
Well, we're going to dive into stoicism. I don't usually do this on a TV show or podcast. I read the Daily Stoic. Me and my two best friends, we say, yeah, we've talked about that. I think we did. It's a great book, Ryan Holiday. Shout out to him and shout out to anybody out there. Grab it. It's just really cool. A daily little dissertation of what Stoics talk about, philosophers, Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, and so on and so forth. And I get the newsletter now too, so I get it every day that way as well. How has Stoicism for you helped you coach and help people grow?
Honestly, it comes back to getting them to just being curious about them, and um, and showing up authentically, just being there to listen, and again, just push the message, but just share with them. Even in the times of trouble, when we think all is lost. It's not. You're still alive, and you just stay in the fight. You stay in that fight, and you continue to fight, and you continue to push through. And you will fail. Everybody will fail, and we all do. And we just maintain that our character. We do good and be good, as Marcus Aurelius said. And I've just found a a piece in learning and reading about it. And again, shout out to Ryan Holiday for that. And I'm going to his live show in Dublin 2 weeks.
Oh, nice.
I'm looking forward to that. But
Yeah.
it's those concepts and those ideas. And every day when I read something new from the Daily Stoic, or I pick up Epictetus's work, or I'm trying to get through all of it. Just little things here and there, and it's just it just those I try to convey and be that person for my clients and be that person for the people that I support, and just show up that way and be curious and care about them and do good and be good.
What I love, me and you are a little bit smarter because we read the Daily Stoic, and nothing in audio. It's just saying, it's just like personal development. It's just another step, because you're right. Do good, be good. Well, the do good I talk about all the time. Serve people. You do. Together we serve. My Doing Business Servants Hard podcast. Do good, but be good. That is the thing that's the missing step a lot of the times, that we have to be reminded that we're fallible. And shout out to you, Marcus Aurelius, wherever you are. That was the simplest, most powerful quote that you could ever hear. Resiliency is huge in safety services, and huge everywhere. And again, it could be a small, like, hey, the copier doesn't work today. I got to make copies. I've got to run to FedEx, find a solution. What's your thoughts on resiliency?
And this helps us bounce back. And that's the bottom line, is if we fall and we can't find a way back, all hope can be lost very easily. I was at a point in my life with that, and I've lived that moment. I've lived that point where I was at the bottom of the barrel. And I share this freely, but I had a gun in my mouth and I was ready to take my life. And if it wasn't for a number of different things that happened at that moment and what happened after that, giving me the courage and unfortunately I had to find it on my own in some cases, but finding the courage to actually go out and find somebody to talk to. I went through 3 therapists and finally found one that was I resonated with. But having that one supervisor give me that one moment of time that went through my mind when I needed it the most, I can never imagine myself being in that moment again. And because of being the resiliency that I built from that moment, and I think that's where we do our best at when we fail, is if we're able to fail, but we bounce back and we can again continue to fight, do good, be good, continue that fight, keep fighting, and just keep working, keep moving, it's like the old phrase in law enforcement: move and shoot, move and shoot. If you're in a gunfight, you move and shoot, and cover, concealment, move and shoot, and that's the military doctrine as well. And you just got to keep moving. You got to keep working. You got to keep working on yourself, I think, is really what it comes down to. Because at the end of the day, you have to build that resilience in yourself, and there's ways to do that. You build competencies and leader competencies, and you can go to school and learn these things, but you learn by doing. And if you learn by failing, you fail forward and you keep failing. Failure is okay. There's nothing wrong with failing. And as long as you are able to pick yourself up and keep moving forward, that resiliency will keep you going. And I think it is one of the more critical pieces of any kind of leadership development, or any development of anybody, especially kids. Resilient kids. I have 2 of the most resilient nieces I've ever seen in my life. I mean, I don't have any of their nieces, but kids, they're so resilient, and they bounce back even at the toughest times when the math problem is just too hard. They work through it and they get there.
Yeah. Well, interesting. I want to bring a point you said very subtly, because it wasn't, the whole conversation, was you went through 3 therapists till you found the right one. That's a huge lesson. Don't just take advice. I've heard this from many mental health professionals. I've said no to people. We weren't a good fit. Talk about that. And, you don't have to get into too much detail, but how important that was for you, because you get the wrong therapist, the wrong doctor, wrong chiropractor, wrong police officer, wrong fire, bad things could possibly happen.
Absolutely. Sometimes you don't get to pick. Sometimes you get picked, and that's where a lot of times trouble starts. But I think we learn lessons from everybody we encounter. Somebody, it doesn't matter if it's somebody on the street or it's I'm at Whole Foods and I'm talking to the cashier. We can all learn something from other human beings. They all give us a lesson of some sort.
Yeah.
Have that moment in time. I'm here for a reason. What's going on? And I think for me, just the first two, I just didn't feel it. It just didn't feel comfortable. But I will tell you, I sat down on the couch for the third one, and I'll never forget this. Her name was Dr. Love. I sat down on the couch. She said like one or two words to me. She was that tough, like, ironic, tough love, that tough lady, just, resilient, authentic, actually cared about me, saw that I was struggling and said, "You are not a bad person. You have work to do. Let's do the work." I bawled my eyes out for the first half hour of the class or the session. So that was the moment that I knew that we matched and we continued to work together. And I think the other thing too, Steve, and this is an interesting point, I just want to throw it out there, is some of the struggles I've seen. A lot of folks I talked to I was at a police conference last week in Boston. I talked to a lot of police psychologists just because I have a passion for this field, this wellness field. And we're lacking. It goes back to coaching too. Lacking the folks that are mental health counselors that have real world policing experience, like coaches. We don't have a lot of coaches that have leadership or that policing experience to make that connection with people. And I think that is a huge part of it. Like you said, most people. Most people. I mean, you could probably coach a police officer or sergeant or whomever. It's just that connection, that cohesive moment, and they just don't. Sometimes you just don't connect, and I think that's in the mental health space too. It's in a big way. There's a lot of clinicians out there that just don't have police experience, and cops can't relate to them, and they feel like they can't share all they can share. And if that's not the case, we're in a world of hurt.
Can't go halfway in.
Nope.
Can't do it. No. I'm going to do a quick share while we're on. This is the Daily Stoic. I don't usually do this. And by the way, Ryan Holiday, and when you see him in Ireland, the sponsorship wouldn't be out of the question. But I just want to put it out there. Hey, shout out. I guess it's my show. I could do that. We'll work together. We'll split that. But it's 366 days of stoicism. And, coming from your perspective, he talks about death. I think I read this morning. Guess what? We're all going to die. But we're afraid to talk about it. So why not enjoy today, having you on my show? I'm enjoying that. I chose that. I could have said no, but I enjoyed it. I'm glad I did, by the way. Same thing. And those are things. I talk about death more I have in the last 2 years since reading that than I have ever. And I'm 63, so I'm not 33. So appreciate you putting that out there. We're coming to the end here. How can people reach you, Rick?
The best way to do it is probably LinkedIn. I know you were flashing on the screen there. That's probably the easiest way to connect. I don't post as much content on there as I'd like to. I'm going to be better at it this year. That's one of my resolutions for this year, is to be better at content. I do share a lot of things with the Arbiter Institute where I work. I do share a lot of things related to nightclub security and public safety and law enforcement leadership. I also forward a lot of things, like a lot of good podcasts, a lot of good material. Mostly like goes back to what you said. I love sharing positive content. There's no reason to point fingers. They're blaming and just putting people down. It just doesn't do anybody any good. What's the point? Again, we're all going to die. Why would I waste my breath to say, "Oh, the Steve's a bad guy. Don't listen to him. His words are fake." Whatever. I can't live. I don't live like that. So, that's the best way to reach me.
I love. There's enough negativity out there. We don't need to add to it too.
No, we don't.
I love that you said that. Okay, let's end with some fun, because this has been a serious show, important show, because it's real world. So we improv. And I think we did this on the podcast. We're going to do it a little differently. So I've just reserved a Learjet for you. It's got 4 seats. You're, of course, in one of the seats. Who are you going to invite in the other 3 seats, and where are you going to fly to?
Oh, man, that's a tough one. I got to put Ryan Holiday in there. I think that's a must-have. I got to bring my wife. I love travel. She's my travel buddy. I love bringing her. If there's room for my dogs, that'd be great too, but I'll leave that
Bring
alone.
dog.
And
Hey, it's
then,
your plane. I'll make sure dogs are allowed. It's your plane.
all right, fair enough. I want to bring my dogs, so I don't have to leave them with anybody. And I think the last one would be, oh, this is tough because I've read a couple really good books lately. One on Eisenhower, one on Truman, and I'm working on George C. Marshall right now. And I think I'd want to have Eisenhower in there. I think I
Ooh,
want Ike in there. Just so many things about that guy. He's such a complicated man with so many flaws, but resilient, and just so many things could have gone wrong from him early on, and how he came out at the end. Um, just because I just finished that book not too long ago, I'd probably choose him.
a lot of pressure too. Talk about a guy with resilience through pressure. I mean, you're running a country. You're running 300 million people, whatever the number of people in the population. It's yeah. Talk about resilience. There you go.
D Day and the
Yeah.
war and
Oh
all
yes.
that's
Oh
just
yeah.
nonstop, man. That's
Nuts.
yeah, crazy.
Special people. So where are we flying?
Yeah, I didn't answer that, did I? Man, I'm gonna throw it out there and say I want to go to Argentina.
I want to go there too. That's a good one.
Yeah.
It's
Like
supposed
some
to
of the
be.
winery outside of Patagonia. There's a great winery out like near the glacier that I read about that I want to go to. South America's on my bucket list, so I think Argentina.
That's a good one. We'll get there faster than Learjet. By the way, I'm sitting in the co-pilot seat because I want to
Oh
meet
no.
Eisenhower too.
Well, see, with Ryan Holiday on board, I was hoping maybe to get you one of the seats. I just
Yeah,
need an extra
yeah.
seat.
I'll just go in the co-pilot. I'll let the pilot handle it. I'll sit in the back with you guys. Well, this has been Rick. Thank you. An audience, if you know anybody in public safety, reach out to Rick, especially if you're hearing things that could be, serious. Could be you're not sure. You could be things leading to where they shouldn't go. Have a conversation with Rick. If it's not Rick, he's got so many resources because we've had nice conversations and I know he can help. If it's not him, he'll find that for you. And by the way, together we serve our law enforcement, our fire, our EMS. It's going to be a better system. We all need to do it together. They can't do it alone. It's just not one person or two people. It's the many. So let's go ahead and do that. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, for another incredible guest. I don't know if they're going to top this, but I'm sure going to try. We'll see you all guys next week. Have a great day, everybody.